and roll in the background. Somebody is rocking it up, which I'm here for. Um, but please just mute it. I'm all about that lifestyle, but just let's just mute it for a little bit.
All righty, we should be live.
Okay.
I'm just going to check on my phone if nobody else has checked already, but put your smiles on because we should definitely be live right now.
Awesome, awesome. Let me know when it's to go.
All right, I see you.
All right, awesome. Well, once again, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our August DeKalb Young Democrats meeting. We hope everybody is staying safe during these times of COVID, and basically view this as your pre-DNC pick-me-up. So we will have fun. We will meet all of these awesome candidates who are, this is a big seat. This is a very big deal. And so first of all, we are definitely proud of all of y'all for just being in this race. So before we start, we have a few announcements. One is let's just get right into talking about actual voting. So the deadline to register to vote, to actually vote for president, for Senate is October 5th. So be sure to make sure that every single person that you know and don't know are all registered to vote. You can order your absentee ballots online. And for most counties, you have two options. You will have a ballot box and you also have mail in. So that is definitely a good option if you cannot leave your home. Early voting is October 12th through October 30th. So if you want to skip the line and not be waiting all day, I mean, I'm a person where I love to go the first day in the morning of early voting. It is so much fun because I'm just in and out, in about 2.5 minutes. So definitely that is a good option. And election day is November 3rd. On our Facebook page, you will find all this information and more. And so just be sure to vote. This is a very crucial, very important year. It has opened up to where you can vote early for like weeks. You can do mail-in or actually vote in person. So every single option is at your fingertips. There is no excuse anymore to not be able to vote. We have made it extremely easy. So please, please, please do vote. Tonight, we also will debut our campaign, which is Stay Woke, Go Vote. And so we will be asking people to basically just let us know, why do you vote? And on that note, I am going to pass it on to our awesome VP of membership, Regina. Take it away.
And thank you, President Jackson. So I am very excited. And I must say that we are very excited here at DeKalb Young Democrats. We're excited to share the launch of our Stay Woke, Go Vote GOTV campaign. And one way that you can also be a part of this campaign is you can submit a video, 15 seconds, and we're going to put the little link in there where you can complete the information and submit the video. And we'll share that video on our social media outlets. And that is a way for you to also be involved in getting people out to vote. So here at DeKalb Young Democrats, I must say, we pride ourselves on being one of the top organizations in politics here in DeKalb County. We are encouraging people 18 to 39 years of age to please join us. You can purchase membership by visiting our website, and we'll also put that website in the chat box. You can join us tonight. We would love to have you as a member. Also, we want to share, if you would like to donate to our organization, $10, $100, or even if you'd like to donate $1,000, please visit us on our website, and we'll also put a link that'll guide you directly to PayPal, where you can make a donation to us. And I must say, every donation that you provide, we greatly appreciate it. And we must say that those efforts will also go towards us mentoring and guiding and raising up the next generations of leaders here in DeKalb County. So with that said, I'm going to turn it back over to our president, President Jackson.
Awesome. And I have that rock and roll intro. Thank you for that. All right, cool. So now, well, first of all, I want to shout out to Dr. Bolton, who is coordinating this campaign. She is doing an amazing job. So thank you so much for all that you do. And what we'll do now is we will go over to Ladina, who will actually run through all of the rules for tonight's forum.
Thank you so much. Again, I am Dr. Ladina Bolton. I am really excited that we were able to get you guys here, all of the candidates here for this really, really important race. So I'm going to reiterate the rules that you all received in your email. And I just want to let everybody know all of the candidates were invited. However, not everybody was able to attend. So for those who did attend or were able to confirm, these are the rules that we shared with you prior to. Each candidate has 2 minutes for their opening statement and 1 minute to close. You'll have 1 minute allotted to respond to questions and an additional 30 seconds, to respond to any follow-up questions or answer questions where your name was invoked. You have 30 seconds to respond to that. At 30 seconds and at 10 seconds, as you can see, I have my sign here. Hopefully you can see that clearly. At 30 and 10 seconds, I'll hold up a sign to indicate that candidates need to begin wrapping up their responses. At time 0, I'll reply, "Thank you," as nicely as I can. At 10 and 30 seconds, I'll hold up that sign to indicate you need to wrap up your responses. At time 0, I'll reply with a pleasant thank you, but I'll go ahead and mute your microphone. And the reason for this is that it'll help us to remain on time and ensure that all participants and viewers can join the DNC broadcast this evening. Okay?
Alrighty, so now we will go ahead and we will introduce our host. And whoever, I'm not sure who has that background, but please mute your mic if you are not speaking. We have okay, sorry about that, guys. Who is from DeKalb Young Democrats. We have Brittany Eames, who is from Young Democrats of Atlanta, and we have Dr. Michael Seabury, who is from Young Democrats is a place of learning. It's a launch pad for those that are between the ages of 18 and 39 to get involved in politics. And so we just want to just thank all of you guys for being involved in this, because young voices are definitely needed. Now I am going to kick it over to Brittany Eames, who will tell us more about Congress and what is a congressperson. Brittany, over to you.
Hey guys, we're gonna keep trying to mute the group throughout the night. So if all of a sudden we seem quiet, it's because we've just muted everyone. So I'm Britt, I'm the social chair of YDATL. I'm also the VP of programs for Young Democrats of Georgia. And I have been tasked with explaining to you all what a congressperson is and what they do. Most of you are familiar, but just so that it's clear, a congressperson is someone who goes to the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. to represent their district back at home. So the 5th district here in Georgia incorporates DeKalb, Clayton, and Fulton counties. So the person who represents us is going to take our issues to Washington. So when you hear things like Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats voted on X, Y, and Z bill in the House, your congressperson is one of those votes anytime you hear that. So it's a really critical role. I think that is my summary du jour. Now it's time to meet the candidates. Cindy, back to you.
Awesome. 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 All right. Thank you so much. That was perfect. That was perfect, Britt. So now it's time to meet the candidates. We will definitely want you all to start with some strong opening statements. Okay, this is your first impression. This is the first thing that everybody will see when they watch this and when they rewatch this, because it will be posted also online for others to rewatch. So just briefly tell us who you are, why you are running, and one main issue that is important to you. You will have 2 minutes each, and we will start with Robert Franklin.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. I want to express appreciation to Dr. Bolton. Thank you for all of your leadership, and to Cindy and Brittany and all the team of Young Democrats in DeKalb County. It's been said that the 2 most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you figure out why. And I think that I am committed to serving the 5th District, and I invite you to look carefully at my candidacy, because there are 5 fundamental tasks that we should be expecting from a person elected in September 29. And it's important that that person be able to show up on day 1, ready to execute on what will be a brief term in office. Number 1, to leverage existing relationships. I know all of the candidates, and they're very honored to share the platform with them tonight. Those who have existing relationships will be able to leverage them for the good of the 5th District. I know many members of Congress, and I'm in constant conversation with them. Secondly, the member who is elected on September 29 must be able to message as John Lewis messaged. That is, to communicate to the 5th District, to the nation, the fundamental concerns of what is happening in the 5th District and beyond. Issues of work and wealth, issues of public health and the like. The third is that person who is elected will have to hold government accountable. We have a president who behaves like an insane emperor, and we must speak truth to that power and hold him accountable, particularly during the lame duck weeks following the election in November. Finally, the person who's elected must be able to convene leaders from various sectors of life, and I would argue to bring a global perspective to this work. It'd be my honor to serve you as a member of Congress, and no matter who you elect, you can't go wrong, because all of these candidates are terrific people.
Thank you so much.
Awesome, awesome job. Thank you so much. Now we will have Barrington Martin II. Over to you, Barrington.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to give thanks to the Young Democrats, and I'd be remiss if I didn't give thanks to the 20,096 voters within the 5th District that voted for me within the primary. To everyone that's watching, my name is Barrington Martin II, and I'm simply here to provide modern day solutions to modern day problems. I'm not here to reinvent the wheel, but to simply revolutionize the wheel. We're at the forefront of a political renaissance in which the people deserve more, and it's time for our government to finally deliver. Being born and raised in the district, it is my home that I love dearly. Therefore, it's my obligation to ensure that the family, the friends, and the people of this district are taken care of. This is my district. I grew up watching my family canvass with the great Reverend James Owens for civil rights icons looking to pursue political office. Former SCLC President Howard Creasy Jr. served as a mentor to my father and I. With such a pedigree, and with sharing the home of great men such as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as well as the late, great Congressman John Lewis, it takes a person with courage who can deliver the dream that Dr. King had for our nation, taking the blueprint he left us to new heights. This is why my platform is entitled The People's Bailout, because it's time for the people to feel empowered, finally possessing a true sense of freedom through economic equity. Thank you.
Awesome, good timing. Thank you so much, Barrington. Now we will have Keisha Sean Waits. Over to you, Keisha.
Okay, I think I'm live. Yes?
Yes, you are.
Okay, greetings everyone. Again, my name is Keisha Waits. I thank you so much for the unique opportunity to speak with your audience tonight. I also want to thank the Young Democrats of DeKalb for organizing tonight's event. I recognize that we all have a lot going on. I want to echo the sentiments of Dr. Freeman that I too share his thoughts that most of the individuals in this election cycle or running in this particular race would be well served in District 5. I think each of us love our city, we love our county, and our various communities. And so I do share that sentiment that regardless of who is selected this evening, that we will be well served. But I do think it's important to note that this is a very, very brief, short window. One of the reasons that I particularly looked at this particular race, I live in 5. I own a small business in 5, and I've spent my lifetime here, about 47 years. The challenges that I have seen from other communities, including District 13 that I've recently ran in, are very similar. One is a bedroom community, one is more inner city. But the reason why I looked at this race is because I think it provides a unique opportunity, whether it's 90 days or 3 weeks, to speak to the hearts and minds of people who are completely disgusted with the process that we see. As a homeowner, as a business owner, I intimately understand the challenges that you are facing. I have aging parents. I've been to the emergency room. I've been to urgent care. We've gotten COVID tests. I have aging parents that have great anxiety. I have family members that are in jeopardy of losing their homes. And so it's been tough. And so my interest is in taking the short window of time to advocate with the remaining 434 colleagues to talk about some of the things that oftentimes slip through the cracks. And I think it would be a disservice to Congressman Lewis, given everything that he stood for, his life, his legacy, spirit of transparency, that the next member does not embody that same spirit of integrity, transparency, and also accessibility, I think is important. And most of us who grew up here in Atlanta, we see him as an uncle or a granddad. This is someone you see in Home Depot and Publix often, and have very fun memories. And so
Thank you
I
so
believe
much.
that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Thank you so much for your words. Now we will have Chase Oliver, and just a quick reminder to be mindful of the time. All right, and over to you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Chase Oliver, and I'm first and foremost want to say thank you to the Young Democrats for inviting me to this forum. And my platform is about more choices and more voices in Washington, D.C. Too often, we have this partisan entrenchment in Congress where the establishment of both the Republicans and Democrats basically dig in their heels and don't get any work done. And that's not beneficial to the people of Atlanta. That's not beneficial to the people of District 5. And so I want to go to Washington, D.C. as someone who is going to build the coalitions that are needed to get things done. And in particular, my platform is focused on criminal justice reform. Now, in the 4 short months that I would be in DC, I want to be a proud voice and a loud voice for those who have been marching in the streets since the murder of George Floyd. And I want to fight for things like ending qualified immunity. That is something that is substantive. It's a real change, and it will make real difference in our communities. It will not only make us safer and law enforcement more accountable, but it will make police safer because communities can trust a police that can be held accountable and not stuck with qualified immunity. I'm fighting to end no-knock raids that have killed people in the past, like Breonna Taylor. These do not need to exist. And there's better ways to be policing that doesn't involve the murder of innocent people, especially someone like Breonna Taylor, who was an EMT serving during this COVID pandemic. I want to fight to end cash bail, which creates a 2-tiered justice system in this country, one for the rich and one for the poor. And I want to take this fight to Washington, D.C. In a way where we can communicate and get real solutions done. I want to get things done. And sometimes that requires bucking the establishment in a little bit and challenging them. And I think if you vote for me, you're going to have someone who is going to challenge the establishment in Washington, D.C. and be a champion for the causes and concerns of the people of the 5th District. Thank you again very much for inviting me to this forum. I understand this seat is a revered seat thanks to the legacy of John Lewis, and I will fight for liberty and I will fight for individual rights for every single person in District 5 if I'm elected and honor that legacy. I just want to say thank you again, and I look forward to hearing from all the other candidates as well.
Thank you so much, Chase. And now we will have Stephen Muhammad. If you could unmute yourself. We still can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Excellent. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. All right, first of all, I'd like to thank the Young Democrats and all of those who are participating tonight in this forum. I'd like to say that I'm running for the 5th district because I feel that I'm the best person to fulfill the seat of John Lewis because of the special needs of the 5th district and the situations that go on in urban communities. I have the unique skill set that allows me to deal with the problems of the people in this district. I myself, as a young man in the streets of Chicago, got off onto the wrong track. I went down the wrong road and did some things that I'm not proud of today. But I was able to straighten that out, come to Atlanta, and live a better life. So I would like to be a part of the things that we need. We need better housing in Atlanta. We need small business reform. We need to have faith leaders at the table. We need to have community leaders at the table. But once you go to Washington, D.C., you have special interest lobbyists and the other people and corporations that interfere with the small man getting his fair shake at the table. So because of that, I will be an independent candidate that will work both sides of the aisle, not be held up by the policies of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. My platform is nonpartisanship, that I will be able to move freely. I think it was said once that the man that is most revolutionary moves through the people like a fish in the ocean. And I feel that I would be the only one that would be able to move through the House of Representatives like a fish in the ocean, because everyone else would be stuck in their place as either a Democrat or Republican. Thank you.
All righty. Well, thank you for that. Okay, so now we are going to go right into it. We have 3 rounds, and the first round will be hosted by, or will be presented by DeKalb Young Democrats with Exec Board Member Regina Hill. She has 3 minutes, 3 questions for each of you, and we will go right over to you, Regina.
Okay. First of all, thank you all so much for joining us tonight and taking our questions. So let's get the burning questions out of the way. There are only 12 weeks before the special election date and your term. So I'm questioning your ability to be effective in Congress for just 12 weeks. What will be your top priorities? And in what ways can you be effective in implementing a strategy for addressing those top priorities? We're going to start with Robert Franklin.
It looks like he may be having some technical difficulties, so let's go on the next one. Come back around.
So Barrington Martin II, we're going to start with you, and we'll come back to Robert Franklin.
All right, no problem. Okay, of course, as I stated before, my platform is entitled People's Bailout. And within the People's Bailout, it's a comprehensive policy platform, that covers universal basic health care, universal guaranteed income, criminal justice reform, as well as equity education for all. So the 2 foremost priorities of my platform is universal basic health care and universal guaranteed income. And this is because of the pandemic that's going on, as well as the challenges that we're going to face in the future with automation and things of that nature. So let's talk about universal basic healthcare. So Medicare for all scares a lot of people, but as we've seen with the pandemic, it places a lot of stress, and it has placed a lot of stress on our healthcare system, and it's also revealed a lot of the weaknesses of our healthcare system as well. To live in the most abundant nation or the richest nation in the world and to not have health coverage for all is, very ridiculous, and that needs to change. Also, what in my healthcare plan, what I want to do is I want to untether the need for employment to healthcare as well, because essentially healthcare is a human right and everyone should have access to it. Secondly, universal guaranteed income. The reason that's very important is because we're moving into a time where automation is going to remove the jobs for a lot of people. For example, 30% of Atlanta, or almost 30% of Atlanta, is unemployed. And with on the onset of automation, this number is going to increase substantially over the next 5 years.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. So Keisha Waits, if you can address the same question, please.
Okay, I think I'm live.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, terrific. So I had the amazing opportunity to serve 3 terms in the Georgia House of Representatives. And during that period of time, I had the chance to work on things that I deeply care about. One of those examples would be ban-the-box legislation. During my tenure, Representative Tyrone Brooks and I actually put forth the bill. The governor, Nathan Deal, later signed that into executive order, creating the ban-the-box opportunity for the state. And what this did is remove the question as to whether or not you had been convicted as a convicted felon. House Bill 54 is a bill that for individuals who were killed in the line of duty, first responders, law enforcement officials, it provided free tuition to their children. I mention these 2 particular pieces of legislation because it speaks to my capacity to work across the aisle. And I think we all agree that that ability is an absolute necessity in working in Washington. Thank you.
And so, Chase Oliver, if you can address the same question, please.
Happily. So the reason my top priority is ending qualified immunity, and ending qualified immunity, while it's not a silver bullet to end the systemic injustices in our justice system, it is something that we can substantively do in the 4 months of that term. There's already a bill that's been created by Ayanna Pressley and Justin Amash in the House. It's 3 pages long. It doesn't need amendments. It doesn't need very long debate. We could pass this tomorrow if there was the political will to do it. And if I'm elected, I will be fighting every day to get that bill on the floor and to get that bill passed, because we have to start holding our law enforcement accountable when they do wrong. When there is abuses, we have to be able to go to the courts, and we have to be able to fight for our rights and for our freedom and for our lives in many cases. In these protests in the last few months, we have seen, time and time again, police abuse over and over again, and we need to be able to answer that. And that is a bill we can pass in those 4 months. That is something we can do if there's a political will. There is tripartisan support. There are 3 parties, the Democrat, the Republican, and my party, the Libertarian Party in Congress, who are supporting this bill, and we can get it done. It's not impossible. Thank you.
Stephen Muhammad, if you can please address the same question. We can't hear you.
Oh.
No, we still can't hear you.
Now.
Yes. Perfect. Yes.
Okay. All right. You can hear me now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first thing I would do when I go to Washington, D.C. is to look at the bill, H.R. 7717, House Resolution H.R. 7717. That is a resolution that's put on the floor right now by Maxine Waters and Congressman Al C. Hastings. In that bill, it deals with the Affordable Care Act. It deals with fair credit. And then that resolution, it deals with several different issues that right now that are important to the entire United States. It's being held up in the Senate. That would be the first thing. I don't need to reinvent anything. I don't need to bring anything on my back. I need to deal with that. I would call up President Trump. I'm an independent. I need to talk to you. We need to do something. We need to get this through. And what will it take to get this through that I can go over and talk to the Democrats who are as stubborn as the Republicans? And what can I do to make sure that we get this passed? Thank you.
And Mr. Robert Franklin, we're going to go back to you. If you can address the same question, please.
I think he might still be having some technical difficulties. It is a thunderstorm going on right now in Atlanta. And so I think that some connections may or may not go through, but we will just keep on trucking on because that's what we do as Democrats. We keep on trucking on. And we will just go ahead and go to the next question. And if he is able to come back around, then we will go to him then.
Perfect. So people are wondering, what have you done in the 5th Congressional District community so far? Tell us some specific programs you have completed over the past 3 to 4 years in the 5th Congressional District. So we're going to start with you, Stephen Muhammad. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, in the 5th District, inner city, on Joseph Boone, we have set up a house called the 10,000 Fearless. And in that house, we do community patrols. We have gotten together with Christian preachers, the concerned Black clergy. And what we do is walk through the communities and we talk to people. We have gone to drug houses. We have gone to the criminals in the community and told them this place, there's no place for you anymore. I've been involved in that. Then over in the 4th Ward, what I've done is I've tried to work to mitigate some of the housing with the problem with housing. What you see over there now is the most expensive inner city neighborhood in the city of Atlanta. I used to be president of the NPUM in that area, and we fought to make it affordable. Now, under the present leadership of the city, these $1 million houses in an area where it started off 5 years ago is for 50,000. So we have dealt with that. So we've been fighting for those 2 issues in those 2 areas that I've done in the last 2 or 3 months, let alone years. Thank you.
And so, Chase Oliver, if you can address the same question, please.
Awesome. So I am actually the chair of the Libertarian Party of Atlanta, and part of our work that we do is community service work. Things like we clean up our local park. We have an adopted park, Phoenix 2 Park in Summerhill. We go out there once a month and clean it up because, you know, we see our parks being neglected and we know the government's not going to get out there and do it. So we get out there and do it ourselves. We participated in Justice Day at the Capitol this year. It was a wonderful event where we could actually go to our legislators and talk about the issues that are very important, things like ending the death penalty, the increasing the definition of gangs, which is a terrible bill that was trying to go through all these issues that are related to criminal justice. Wonderful event, Justice Day at the Capitol. I participated in marches all through different communities, from Stone Mountain on into the city for Black Lives Matter since the murder of George Floyd, since this has all gone on. I've had tear gas in my eyes. It's no fun, but I've been out there amongst the people in the streets. I've participated in charity groups like Lost and Found Youth, who serve the underserved LGBT community in Atlanta, the youth who are often made homeless because of being who they are. And I'm also participating in AIDS Walk Atlanta in just a few weeks. And I encourage anybody, it's a virtual walk this year, but they still need donations to help those who are most vulnerable in fighting HIV/AIDS in Atlanta. So I try to be of service to my community, and I try to be an upstanding citizen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Keisha Waits, if you can please address the same question.
Thank you for the question. A couple things. As I began the conversation, I talked about being a small business owner. I provided low-cost, affordable housing to families that struggle with credit issues or issues of financial stability for probably 2 decades. This is a business that my family started. In addition to that, I had the pleasure, as I indicated, of serving 3 terms in the Georgia House. This included the cities of College Park, City of Atlanta, Forest Park, Hateville. And so in those communities, we were able to work with the local elected officials to push through legislation that was important for not only their financial stability, but also to work with members of the General Assembly to secure funding that was important to them. And finally, I worked with the 2 high schools in my community, Forest Park High School and South Atlanta High School, to secure 2- and 4-year college military scholarships, which is a privilege as a member that you would submit nominations for individuals to secure this funding. And so these are things that I'm extremely proud of that we were able to do in a short period of time. And I look forward to continuing to do this on a federal level. Thank you.
Barrington Martin II, if you can please address the same question.
Certainly, thank you. My activism begins as early as my childhood. Again, being out with my family in the streets, canvassing with the great Reverend James Orange, as well as under the tutelage of the former president at CLC, Howard Creasy Jr. My greatest honor, however, is being a special needs educator right now, currently within the elementary school within the 5th district, and just overall impacting the children's lives. That's something that I totally would never take for granted. I'm also a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and we engage in a lot of community service events. I'm a part of the board of Atlanta UBI Project, and we go into the neighborhoods and we clean up and we do a lot of community organizing events. And more recently, well, pretty soon, I'm a part of the Humanized Blackness Coalition, and I will begin personally teaching civics classes to lower income communities within the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
And Robert Franklin?
I think he is still
Okay.
Yeah, having technical difficulties.
So we're going to move on to the next question. Many people are wondering, what will you do for DeKalb County when you are elected into office? Tell us, what is your plan for DeKalb County? We're going to start this off with Keisha Waits.
Okay. I'm sorry, I can never tell when I'm unmuted. I apologize, I'm not necessarily technically savvy. Well, a couple of things. When I was a member of the House my freshman year, I actually represented portions of DeKalb, the Cedar Grove community, in the DeKalb delegation. I think it's important that you have relationships with the locally elected officials. I think constituent service is probably one of the most important roles a member of Congress would hold. That would include advocating for issues of disability, advocating in terms of receiving Social Security benefits for dependents and youth, regardless of what the situation was. We all know with COVID-19, healthcare issues will be paramount. And so the capacity to be able to navigate and advocate on behalf of working families and seniors, I think, will be extremely important. And so I look forward to serving and working with the DeKalb delegation, have those existing relationships from being a member of the General Assembly. And I look forward to taking those relationships to Washington and leveraging those ones back home as well. Thank you.
So Barrington Martin II, if you can address the same question, please.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes. The biggest thing that I would like to do for DeKalb County is address the great wealth disparity that's going on within the county right now. There is a Old Fourth Ward Economic Task Force that is looking at guaranteed income into the Old Fourth Ward. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, as I stated earlier, guaranteed income is one of the pillars of my platform, and I would love to bring something like that, to the low income areas of DeKalb County, because being a graduate of Cedar Grove High School and just seeing like all of the poverty within specific areas, I think that would be a great program to have. Not to mention, I would like to better the infrastructure as well within DeKalb County. There has been often too many boil water advisories that have been going on, throughout my lifetime, and I think that it's very important to address the infrastructure within the county, because everyone, deserves the common necessity of water. Thank you.
And so Chase Oliver, if you can address the same question, please.
So what would I do for DeKalb County?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so DeKalb County is my home, and the issues that, of course, that are most important to me are criminal justice related, but there are many others. One thing that I'm very interested in is ending the drug war. I don't know if that's going to be happening in 4 months of me there, but I will be a proud voice to end the injustice system of people being able to consume what they want to consume. I don't think that this is a criminal issue. I think this is drug addiction is a medical crisis, and it needs to be treated as such. And there are far too many people who are in the DeKalb County jail right now who should be in a rehab program or some other program to be helped. I'm a big believer in using the bully pulpit to talk about voluntarism and things we can do as individuals to help our community, because oftentimes government takes too long and is too complicated. And many times the things they do to help us, or that they try to do to help us, make things worse. So I would be an advocate of let's make personal change at the grassroots. And I would be advocating for that as a congressman. and trying to bring power back to our local communities like DeKalb County.
So we're gonna ask Robert Franklin if you can address the same question, please.
Could you please restate the question?
Yes. Many people are wondering, what will you do for DeKalb County when elected into office?
I am committed to focusing first on issues of voting rights, and this speaks to one of your earlier questions. I do apologize for the challenge. We are experiencing a terrible thunderstorm, so thank you for your patience. Focusing on voting rights. As you know, Congress has already passed H.R. 4 to rename the Voting Rights Act in honor of Congressman John Lewis, and it's the John Lewis Voting Rights and Advancement Act. So that word advancement talks about going beyond and restoring some of the important benefits that were taken away during the tragic 2013 Shelby Supreme Court case. With respect to DeKalb County, I'm exceedingly concerned about the public health of DeKalb County, of Fulton County, of Clayton County, and all the people of the district. We are facing the ravages of a terrible, terrible COVID-19 infestation, and we are struggling to overcome. And I talked earlier about the importance of having existing relationships you can leverage and call on. So I would call CDC together with leaders in DeKalb to focus on a block by block response to this crisis.
And Steve Muhammad, if you can address the same question, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, my situation with DeKalb would be in the small business area. Right now in South DeKalb Mall, that area is hit with blight. My son wanted to open up a restaurant in the South DeKalb Mall, him and his partners. They had a problem getting a liquor license, a restaurant they wanted to open up with a liquor license, which would have created 15 jobs for people, giving them a livable wage, and they wanted to do in South DeKalb Mall. But they had so many problems with the DeKalb County government of not giving them a liquor license that they didn't open it up and they walked away from it. That would have been something that I know that we would have done for DeKalb County. Also, DeKalb County, the crime that's along Candler Road and Glenwood and those places, it needs to be a group that comes in and train those young men to have skills. Just like with the water boys in Atlanta, there are skills that we can give them to allow them to work and do things for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, all candidates. At this time, we're going to turn the second portion over to our president, President Jackson.
Hi, and I would like to just give a quick chance for Mr. Robert Franklin to answer the two questions that he wasn't able to answer. Regina, if you could just quickly run by those first two and just give him a few minutes just to, to respond to those.
Yes, indeed. The first question was one, let's get the Bernie question out of the way. There are only 12 weeks between the special election date and your term. So I'm questioning your ability to be effective in Congress for just 12 weeks. What will be your top priorities? And in what ways can you be effective in implementing a strategy for addressing those top priorities?
Well, I appreciate the realism of the question because, leaders can make lots of promises, but your question holds us accountable to what can you realistically do in 90 days or 60 days or 30 days or less. And the response to that, number one, as I suggested, ensuring that the US Senate take up the measure of renaming the Voting Rights Act after John Lewis and restoring all of its protections. Because the Senate has to be held accountable, and someone who can message effectively with the Senate can raise the question, what will be your legacy? Many of those senators will not be returning, and I would challenge them to go on record before history and before John Lewis, who is watching, to do the right thing. The second is a focus on public health. And as I say, we need a community-wide mobilization. People are dying every day. And I want to salute the terrific healthcare workers, people working in hospitals right now. They need our help. I'll be a powerful advocate for them.
The second question, people are wondering, what have you done in the 5th Congressional District community so far? Tell us some specific programs you have completed over the past 3 to 4 years within the 5th Congressional District.
I appreciate the question very much. And I also appreciate Cindy's commitment to justice, because she wanted this candidate to have equal time. So thank you for modeling social justice. That's so important. What have I done? As president of Morehouse College, I was an employer. I had responsibility for engaging in community development and community economic development meetings. I appreciate the other candidates have alluded to the importance of supporting small businesses. And if you drive along Martin Luther King Drive these days and look at the businesses that have emerged during these years of working together with other significant leaders, I was at the table and I was suggesting that we need deeper pockets to help us solve the problem of poverty throughout our communities. Joblessness, the poverty rate is exceedingly high in our communities. In the district, homeownership rates are very low with respect to the homeownership of white communities, and we need to reverse those trends now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Great responses to those questions. Now we are going to go into round 2. This round is presented by the Young Democrats of Atlanta, ATL. We will have Brittany Eames, and she has a few questions for you guys as well. So I will pass it over to you, Brittany.
Hi, guys. So between the voter purges of 2017, the closing of rural polling locations in 2018, and the epic battle that has been the administration of absentee voting in 2020, there's a lot of discussion about voter suppression in the state of Georgia. And not just because of our history with Jim Crow and all kinds of madness for the last 100 years. Just the last couple of years have been pretty bonkers. Recently, the topic of voter fatigue has been central to the effort to curb voter suppression in Georgia. In 2020 alone, Georgia has had 2 primary elections, one in March, another in June, one runoff in August, and of course, there's a presidential election coming up in November. With an unprecedented electoral calendar, are you at all concerned that the addition of this special election will contribute to voter fatigue or voter confusion, especially with regards to absentee voting? Robert Franklin, you've done a lot of talking in the last 5 minutes, and I hate to do it to you, but you are my first on my list.
I'm very grateful, Brittany, for the important question. It's probably a question all of my colleagues, fellow office seekers, are also facing. We have to push back against voter fatigue. Yes, people have gone repeatedly, and there may be 5 or 6 elections during the course of this season. But our ancestors paid with their blood, sweat, and tears. So we don't have the luxury of saying, we'll sit this one out. Each one of those elections is important for registering the people's priorities and the people's desire. And so I would continue to message, along with my colleagues, how important September 29 is. We all worry that folks will focus on November. November is an important agenda and set of elections, but September 29 determines who fulfills the remaining days of John Lewis's term. And I regard that as a sacred calling, a sacred duty, and one I want to challenge every voter to take seriously. You owe it to John Lewis to show up on 9/29.
Thank you very much. Barrington Martin, how are you feeling about this unprecedented electoral calendar? And are you at all concerned about voter fatigue and voter confusion with adding one more election to our madhouse of a calendar in 2020?
I'm absolutely concerned. Voter suppression is not an issue just for the GOP, but it's also an issue for the Democratic Party. I think that we have to take the Voting Rights Act a step further and make it an amendment, because voting is one of the tenets of our democracy within the United States. It's how this nation was founded, and it's the lifeline of this nation. Not to mention, voting should be a national holiday. Based on the innovative technology that we have, we should be able to use things like blockchain technology to be able to safely and securely vote from the comfort of our own homes. Furthermore, I just think that in order for us to continue on with our democracy and to allow our voices to be heard as the citizens of this great land, it is imperative that we continue to hold our government officials accountable, but it's very important that we hold ourselves accountable moving forward when it comes to voting and our voting rights. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Keisha Sean Waits, how are you feeling about voter fatigue and voter confusion in 2020?
Yes, I want to echo the sentiment of my colleagues this evening. During my tenure in the Georgia House of Representatives, I had the unique opportunity to work directly with Minority Leader Stacey Abrams on these issues. And what that included is ensuring that individuals had the access to early advance voting, in addition to putting legislation in place to address some of the challenges and woes that we recently saw in the June 9th primary. In addition to that, I specifically filed a lawsuit and went to court over some of the issues that we saw, the long lines, the inoperable equipment, closing of precincts and so forth. And it simply amounts to incompetence. And yes, so I certainly share the sentiments of my colleagues this evening that we have some serious challenges. And for that reason, I am currently reaching out to state as well as federal officials asking for some monitoring to take place to address some of the issues.
Awesome. Chase Oliver, how are you feeling about voter suppression and voter fatigue and confusion at this point in 2020?
So voter suppression is a real issue that is very important, and voter fatigue is something we can talk about. And one great way to solve voter fatigue is to cut down on the number of primaries we have by advocating for ranked choice voting like they have in Maine. You don't have to have a runoff a few weeks later. You just pick your first choice, your second choice, your third choice, and so on. And then you don't have to have another race. So choice voting right there is one way to combat voter fatigue. But when we talk about voter suppression, it's not just Kemp and his problems. And we all know about Governor Kemp's voter suppression efforts. But there's also things like gerrymandering and ballot access reform that need to happen in this state. Because many times at the state legislature, we have people who are running one name on the ballot, and that's not democracy. We should have more names on the ballot. It should be easier for independents and third parties to get on the ballot to challenge these gerrymandered districts and to really bring competition to the vote. Because that's why we have so many people who don't even bother voting, because they say, why should I? Because I already know who's going to win. There's only one name on the ballot. So what's the point? So the way we can re-engage voters and get more independent and more people who haven't voted out there and voting is to provide more choices and more voices, and to do it in a way, ranked choice voting, that makes sense and cuts down on voter fatigue. Yeah, again, I am all for engaging voters and getting more people out to vote. So advocate for ranked choice voting and end gerrymandering.
Thank you. All right, last but certainly not least, Stephen Muhammad, how are you feeling about this electoral calendar and adding this additional special election and how it might impact voter fatigue and voter confusion in 2020?
Well, voter fatigue, voter suppression, voter oppression, that's been going on in America against Black people, 1865, 1895, 1920, 1965 Voting Rights Act. They oppressed it again. Reagan had to redo it in 1985. It goes on and on and on. So that always goes on. But the thing that I look at with voter fatigue in this particular election, give the people something that they will come out for. In 2008, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina. I didn't vote early. I didn't send in a ballot by mail. I had to rush back to Atlanta to vote for Barack Obama because he gave me something to vote for. So when I voted for Barack Obama, and then I had to drive back to Charlotte, North Carolina, right after I voted. But I came because he gave me something to vote for. If we give them a candidate to vote for, they will come out. They don't come out because they don't see anything.
Great, thank you. All right, one last question from YDATL. Everyone knows we're in the middle of the worst health crisis this country's ever seen. Americans are facing a looming housing crisis that in some places is already well underway, Atlanta and Georgia in general being one of them. Americans are processing an unfathomable 173,000 deaths, and thousands are losing insurance by the day as they lose their employment. What do you see as the major limitations and strengths of the Republican HEALS Act? What would you like to see stricken or added from that act? And how would you interact with that when you get to Washington? And Stephen, you went last time, so let's have you go first.
Would you repeat the question?
Of course. Do you want all the lead up or just the question?
The question.
Okay. What do you see as the major limitations and strengths of the Republican proposed HEALS Act? That's the COVID-19 relief plan that was on the table and still remains on the table. And what would you like to see stricken or added to that proposal?
Well, I'm not familiar with all the nuances of that particular bill. If you give me some of the nuances, maybe I could tell you. What I would like to see, though, is a COVID-19 act that helps to really mitigate this crisis. As we see now, no mask, no social distancing. Governor Kemp would like everybody to go back to work and drop dead. I think that's what he's trying to do. So when you have those kinds of things and those kind of policies, you will not be able to mitigate and stop this disease. So what I would like to see is to follow the science, follow the data, and to stop and eradicate this disease, because it is really, really creating pandemic economically, socially, culturally. Child abuse has gone up, sex trafficking has gone up. All kinds of things have been added to this particular pandemic. So what I would like to see is real action taken by these Republican governors and Democratic.
Thank you. Chase Oliver, do you need the question one more time?
No, I got it. So the GOP COVID bill, let's talk about what's wrong with it. Well, namely most of it, because it's a giant bill full of pork. What it does is it advocates for spending for things like the Pentagon and things that have no real use in a COVID-19 relief bill. I would advocate instead that we should be offering direct payments back to people. We should be taking the tax money that was taken from them and just give it directly back to them in forms of monthly payments. We don't need complicated red tape. Just give the people their tax money back. That's how you can keep people in their homes. That's how you can keep people with food on their table and clothing on their backs. And I would, as far as COVID, be advocating social responsibility. I wear a mask, I socially distance, and I think we should be leading the charge and saying, you know, we should be socially responsible to get this economy back on track. Now, as far as COVID-19, you know, advocating social responsibility and getting to the point of what is the issue here. The issue is that there is so much problem with the response to COVID-19 from the very beginning, from the CDC and the FDA, and they're dragging their feet in the red tape. We had COVID-19 tests that the CDC did not approve. South Korea bought them, and they were able to contain their COVID-19 crisis much more effectively because they had a much better testing schedule, because they weren't constrained by the kind of government red tape that we have here in Washington, D.C. So again, direct payments to people, get the pork out of this bill and make it simple, and advocate for social responsibility during this crisis so we can get the economy and get our lives back to normal. I know I want it to be back to normal, and I think
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're so good at shutting it down, babe. Thank you, Chase. Keisha, how do you feel about the Republican HEALS Act? What are the major limitations and strengths as you see them? And what would you like to see stricken or added for an appropriate COVID-19 relief bill for Americans?
Well, COVID-19 has presented certainly many challenges, but I think it's also presented some opportunities for us to address some things that don't work for us. And when I think about our healthcare system and the fact that there's been some work to dismantle the work that was put in place by the previous administration, I think that it presents an opportunity to address universal health care. There are a number of individuals who do not have health care in our country, and the pandemic certainly has brought that to light in many ways. In addition to that, I think that the fact that many larger businesses received funding and bailouts before working families is certainly a challenge. And during that short period of time in Washington, I would certainly use my voice to speak on behalf of those working families.
This thunderstorm is not being kind to us. There you go, I see you.
Did you lose me?
I lost you maybe 20 seconds back.
Okay, so I'll just wrap it up. Simply that larger businesses and corporations were bailed out. I believe that small businesses as well as working families were left behind. And I would use this short window of time in Congress to advocate for small businesses as well as working families.
Thank you. Barrington, how are you feeling about the HEALS Act? What do you want to see stricken? What do you want to see added? What are the limitations and strengths as you see them of this current proposed bill crafted by the Republicans?
First and foremost, I think I would be remiss if I didn't state that it was totally preposterous for our Senate and our Congress to take as many recesses as they did, while many of the American public was, left without an answer to many of the other problems that this pandemic plagued them with. So I have to go back to my introduction in which I stated that the great Martin Luther King Jr. gave us the blueprint to the things that needed to occur, especially in the times of a pandemic. So when you look at that act, you have to think about, for example, the $1,200 one-time payment that was given. If we had a guaranteed income, that would have been given monthly. And not to mention, let's talk about the $600 employment. Personally, employment should be totally connected to the amount of money that you make at your job. However, as we've seen with this pandemic, many people don't even possess a living wage to make enough money for their job. So within that act, I think that it's important that, for one, the unemployment amount should have matched the person's normal job amount. The $1,200, I feel, should have already been happening with the guaranteed income, but I think that it's important that due to a health crisis like the coronavirus, there should have been a moratorium on all rents, all mortgages, all bills, and things of that nature to the end of COVID, because how dare us as a government force people to work in the middle of a healthcare crisis? That's
Thank
not fair.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our last answerer, Mr. Robert Franklin, how are you feeling about the Republican proposed HEALS Act, which is the current COVID-19 relief package that's on the table right now? What do you want to see stricken? What do you want to see added? What do you feel the limitations are? What do you think?
First of all, I want to say that we need to free the CDC. I'm exceedingly suspicious of the Trump administration's effort to create a middleman barrier to the free flow of data about health of various communities. And so that's number one. We need to focus on the Centers for Disease Control as a trusted, independent agency and prevent it from being politicized. Next, with respect to your question, there is, I think, a commendable impulse in the HEALS Act, which is to ensure that small businesses and companies can return during this post-COVID season without being devastated by lawsuits. But it goes too far, and it fails to prioritize working people, common people, the people who are running small businesses. I appreciate the comments of Ms. Waite and Mr. Muhammad earlier about the importance of small businesses struggling to stand up and to survive amidst this COVID-19 season. And what I find really disgusting in the bill is to indemnify and protect business owners so that they fail to provide protections for their workers.
Oh, I was muted. I'm the worst millennial in the world.
You're giving me more time. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much for answering YDATL's questions. We'll pass it back to Cindy.
Thank you so much. Everyone did a great job. And thank you, Brittany, and the YDTL team. Those are some great questions. Now we are going to go into our third and final round of questioning. And this round will be given by the Clayton County Young Dems with Dr. Michael Seabury. Yes, y'all, we are getting some great folks that are in Young Dems. We have a lot of doctors now, right? So yes, we are young and educated. And we'll pass this on to Dr. Seabury.
Thank you so much. Clayton County Young Democrats works incessantly to educate, empower, and enhance young voters in Clayton County. We believe in the power of voice, and through intentional action, we create space for everyone to have a seat at the table. With that in mind, I present questions on behalf of the Clayton County Young Democrats. Our first question is, the entire nation and world celebrates the life and legacy of Representative John Lewis. As change makers, it may be daunting to follow in his footsteps, especially as the climate of racial injustice is shifting in our nation. What policies or populations will you work with to uplift his charge to remain in good and necessary trouble? And we'll start with Robert Franklin.
Well, thank you, good doctor, for that very important question, because it speaks to one of my strengths for the 30 years that I've been a resident of the 5th District, and that's bringing people together from North, South, East, and West 5th District, from various communities, from faith communities of various kinds. And we must come together to find the common ground that John Lewis spoke so passionately about. Ultimately, we will be able to solve our problems if we unite and discover that there are common interests. One of the things that excites me about what Black Lives Matter has done is reveal the fact that all reasonable Americans can appreciate the cause of social justice, of eradicating racism, of eradicating police misconduct. And I see leaders, I see citizens from every community responding because of the power of truth, the power of truth. And that's what I intend to do as I speak, as I convene leaders, and as I advocate for justice in the nation's capital.
Thank you for your response. Next, we'll have Barrington Martin II.
Yes, sir. Could you repeat the question so I can completely answer you in totality, please?
Absolutely. Would you like the entire phrase or just the question part?
The entire phrase. I want everything. Thank you.
I got you. So the entire nation and world celebrates the life and legacy of Representative John Lewis. As change makers, it may be daunting to follow in his footsteps, especially as the climate of racial injustice is shifting in our nation. What policies or populations will you work with to uplift his charge to remain in good and necessary trouble?
Well, first and foremost, and I've been using this word a lot tonight, but I'll be remiss to say that I have the utmost respect for the great congressman and the good trouble that he started, but I'm a firm believer that it's time for new trouble. And the reason I say this is because we understand, and we've been knowing this for a long time, that there has been, racial issues within our nation, but more so within this pandemic, we've seen that ultimately there is a classist issue as well. And so I would think that I would definitely work with the lower income community, because as a special needs educator, I've seen firsthand how poverty targets a specific demographic of people. And if we are able to uplift those people, we can uplift the entire nation. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. Next, we have Keisha Shawn Waits.
Okay, I think we're good. So I think the question was regarding which communities I would be interested in working with and or uplifting or advocating for. And I spoke to this earlier this evening. More importantly, small business owners who are struggling right now. As I indicated, that many of the resources that were allocated for COVID-19 went to your larger big box employers who really didn't need bailouts. Some of these were even Ivy League colleges. Secondly, working families. There were certainly assistance in terms of unemployment benefits, but again, there are other families who are still hurting, who were not unemployed during this time frame, but have taken on additional expenses. My mother is one of those folks who's raising 2 small children, to which that she now has additional food costs because the kids are at home all day. And so there is an impact across the board regarding COVID-19. And then finally, criminal justice reform. I mean, these issues have been echoed in our city and around the nation, even the world, of the importance of addressing challenges involving the law enforcement community. And then finally, the LGBT community. As a member of the community, I think is paramount, given that we live in Atlanta, Fulton County. District 5 is probably one of the most diverse districts in the United States. And so it is essential that we have a member that is sensitive to the needs of these individual marginalized communities, but also able to effectively advocate to speak to the needs of these communities. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. Our next response will be from Chase Oliver.
Yes, and I want to go ahead and just say that, yes, while I've been talking about criminal justice reform and those reforms, and I will be happy to echo those later, the two communities I really want to highlight right now. First off, we all know that Black lives matter and that all lives won't matter until Black lives matter, but Black lives don't matter until Black trans lives matter. This year, we've had more murder of trans people than in the last 7 years combined, and we're not even 3/4 of the way through the year. So that's an issue I want to address. I would add LGBTQ people to the Civil Rights Act if I had the means to do it. It's something that needs to be done, and it's something that John Lewis would have supported. Another group that I want to talk about is the immigrant population in this city. We have many immigrants who come to this city looking for opportunity, for jobs, and the American dream, and we should be helping those people, and we should be fighting against those who would be caging people at the borders, separating mothers and or fathers from their children, and abusing people at the border. That's what's going on, and I will be a voice against those injustices. And again, Black lives do matter, and I want to fight for those criminal justice reforms as well. Things like ending no-knock raids that killed Breonna Taylor. Things like ending cash bail, which create a rich justice system and a poor justice system. Things like ending the drug war, which systemically attacks Black and brown people more in terms of sentencing and arrests. I want to fight for things like ending victimless crimes. So many crimes are on the books that have no real victim. And what we do is we take law enforcement's eye off the ball against violent crime in our communities. So these are issues that I want to stand up for. And these are issues that John Lewis stood up for. You know, the last time I saw John Lewis was at an immigration march, marching against ICE prisoners being put into our city jails. And I was happy to join him in that effort. And I will be a voice for the people who are basically held down and abused by systems.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that response. And finally, for this question, our last response is from Stephen Muhammad.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, John Lewis is an icon, and I'm a peon. So you're going to go from an icon to a peon when you elect me. But this peon, the last time I saw John Lewis and we had a discussion was in December, about a week before in Washington, D.C., and about a week before his cancer diagnosis. There was a program at the Library of Congress, and Miss Jane Gunther, who lives here in Atlanta, a white woman who was on the bus with Rosa Parks, and she offered Miss Parks a seat. It was a big issue at that time, and she invited me up. So I took my grandchildren with me. So we were all up there. So we were in his office. We had a discussion about what is important for the upcoming year, which is 2020. You can see clearly. He said, what is important? And we talked about the children. I had my grandchildren. I said, because they go to school. And I didn't know then that we would have a pandemic and it would be laptops and virtual. My children go to school in Fulton County, and they have laptops that they can't get online with because they were probably laptops that came out with George Bush. This is what the schools are giving out. And so because of that, they're having a problem doing their work with those laptops. They have to use personal equipment that they have. So that's a problem with all youth in Fulton County. They're poor youth, DeKalb, Fulton, who don't have proper laptops and equipment. They don't have Wi-Fi. So what are we going to do? And we talked about the youth problem. I know my time is up, so I'll end it. But that was an issue that he and I discussed, the youth, the young people, education.
Thank you, because you know I was coming for you.
Thank you for those responses. Our second question, and I know we mentioned voter fatigue earlier. However, Representative Lewis described voting as the most powerful nonviolent tool we have to create a more perfect union. How will you actively fight against the effects of voter suppression in our district, our state, and our nation? For this question, we will have our first response from Stephen Muhammad.
Can you hear me? Yes. Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to go to the other side of the aisle. We cannot pass a Voter Rights Act bill with just the Democratic Party. There has to be some dialogue. There has to be some integration. There has to be some working together. Well, I'm the person that can go over there and talk to them because there's no fear. The thing about John Lewis that was unique, he had no fear. He walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge and he faced death. We have some people now that are afraid to walk across the hallway to talk to Republicans. Now that's a darn shame. We have Republicans that are afraid to walk across the hall and talk to Democrats. So John Lewis is that icon because he could do that. He could cross the aisle. He could mix and mingle and do those kind of things. Well, I'm another person that has no fear. And because of that, I feel that I'm the best one suited to be able to fill those shoes because it takes a person with courage to go and do that. But I'm still a peon compared to his icon status. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. Next, we'll have Chase. I'm sorry, Chase Oliver, excuse me.
So in terms of what would I do to advocate for voting? Well, you heard me earlier talk about how we need more choices and more voices of the ballot. Again, a lot of voter suppression comes from the entrenched party interests who do their best to gerrymander districts and to make sure that there is no real choice other than one choice on election day at the ballot. And we need to have more independent and more third-party voices. If we want to talk about getting things done and talking to other people, I have no fear, of talking to people across the aisle. I have no problem working with anybody as long as their goal is to make sure that everyone is enfranchised and has the ability to vote on election day. I support mail voting. I support absentee voting. I support voting of any kind because, as you said, John Lewis said this is the most powerful nonviolent tool we have. And I think it would be wrong for party interests to basically restrict the number of choices you have on the ballot or the number of choices you see on a debate stage. And again, if you want to talk about getting things done, we have to go beyond the entrenched leadership of these parties, of the Democrat and Republican parties, and challenge them. And even if it's a Democrat challenging the Democratic leadership, we need to tell Nancy Pelosi, no, we have to get things done sometimes, and that requires sometimes working with Republicans. And Republicans need to get a spine too and challenge their leadership as well. So I would say that's how you can combat voter suppression, is by advocating for more choices, more voices, and fighting to pass the Civil Rights or the Voting Rights Act immediately.
Thank you for your response. Next, we invite Keisha Sean Waits to respond.
Thank you for the question. I think it's important that we address the elephant in the room this evening. I think the process, this election process regarding the District 5 seat in itself is flawed. I think that the fact that the voters did not choose their own representation is very challenging. And I think that that is antithetical to the spirit of Congressman John Lewis. And so I think if we're going to have a conversation about voter suppression, I think we've got to look at Democrats as well as Republicans. And it is my belief the sham process that took place was a level of disrespect to his legacy and to his memory. It is my belief that he stood for transparency, that he stood for things of integrity. And I think that that process lacked integrity, including the 131 individuals who submitted an application in addition to Dr. Franklin, who made the short finalist list. And so I think we have to make sure that if we're going to have a conversation about voter suppression, that we include Democrats and the leadership in that conversation to ensure that the will of the voters is not being usurped.
Thank you for your response. Next, we invite Barrington Martin II.
Yes, well, first and foremost, I think that I have to state that voting is something that is dear to me because I understand what voter suppression is firsthand. And I say this because, I had the courage to challenge the great congressman this past June, and I accumulated 20,096 votes from people who entrusted their future and livelihood to me, in which the Democratic Party of Georgia totally ignored their voices and silenced them and told them directly and explicitly that they did not matter. This is why within my policies, I'm a strong advocate in making the John Lewis Voting Rights Act an amendment, because voting needs to be constitutionally protected and solidified as a big major part of our democracy. I would also make it to where as soon as you turn 18, you're automatically registered to vote. I will also want from the ages of 16 to 18, children within high schools to be able to work into polls to allow them to become engaged within the political process. And this is just only a few things that I would do within that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. And finally, for this question, Dr. Franklin.
I think we have two bookend moral icons challenging all of us tonight. On one end, John Lewis, who, as my colleague said earlier, marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge and was brutalized for the right to vote. How dare we sit at home on election day, any opportunity that we have to go out and exercise that vital right. But on the other end is Michelle Obama, who challenged this nation the other night and said, you must vote as if your life depends upon it. And I believe Michelle Obama is exactly right. Let us mobilize. Let's take our children to the polls. Let them see us engaged in the practice of self-governance. That's the beauty and the power of democracy. Meanwhile, many on the other side have systematically sought to take away those rights, eliminating Sunday voting, eliminating same-day registration, making it more draconian to produce and provide adequate voter ID. We must push back against this, and John Lewis and Michelle Obama are like goodness and mercy on either side.
Thank you for that response. And our final question is, unfortunately, District 5 does not cover all of Clayton County as we wish it did, but we are grateful for our representatives as well. But in what ways do you plan to incorporate the voices of Clayton County constituents that do fall in District 5? I'm sorry, I guess I need to give someone who's first, right? First answering this question, we will have Keisha Sean Waits.
Okay, terrific. Can you give me the last part? You mentioned Clayton County, but what was the question again?
In what ways do you plan to incorporate the voices of the Clayton County constituents that fall in District 5?
Great. I really don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I do think it's interesting that Clayton County individuals did not weigh in regarding the selection process for the nominee and the appointing process. And so certainly that is something that I would definitely not be in agreement with. I would work to ensure that Clayton County was at the table. During my tenure in the General Assembly, as I indicated earlier, I had the privilege of representing the portion of Clayton. In fact, that was the Forest Park community, to which I still have excellent relationships with the elected officials in that quarter. But I say that to you to say that I am very proud of the work that I've done in terms of advocating for MARTA to come back to Clayton County. I worked very closely with the county commissioners in the quarter and will continue to do that at a federal level to ensure that there is funding there for transportation projects, as well as all of District 5, and certainly look forward to working with you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for your response. And next we'll have Barrington Martin II.
Yes, sir. I think that it's important to reach out and allow the people of Clayton County to understand that they deserve a seat at the table. As Ms. Wade said, I know firsthand that the great people of Clayton County within the district didn't even get a chance to let their voice be heard within the selection process of the nominee. I would continue on with my outreach to the over 9,000 voters of Clayton County that voted for me within the primary. I've already begun speaking with many of the citizens within Clayton County, within the district, directly speaking with them in a COVID-safe manner, of course, canvassing. I'm making sure that the young people of Clayton County who are of age to vote feel as if that they are active participants within the democratic process going forward, because essentially we do need more young people to vote. So I think that essentially that it's important just to extend the outreach and just allow the people of that county to know that within District 5, their voices will be heard going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the next voice we'll hear is a response from Chase Oliver.
All right, now I hear the other candidates talking about how Clayton County voters are frustrated because they didn't have a voice in this selection process. Yeah, I would say that is old hat for independents and third parties in the state of Georgia. We often are not given a seat at the table, and it's crazy because we do need more diversity of voices in our politics. And this is my message to the voters of Clayton County and of DeKalb and Fulton. Do not let your vote be expected. Your vote should be earned by each and every one of us. And political establishment should not be controlling who does and does not have a voice. You all have a voice. You are the power. And I think if you want to send a message to the political establishment in the state of Georgia, you might want to pick somebody who is not maybe a Democrat, maybe who is an independent or a third party member. So that way we can show people in this 4-month term that your vote is to be earned and not expected by the party establishment. So I think you should buck the establishment. That is one way the people of Clayton County can get their voice heard, is to show their dissatisfaction with the party insiders who have basically taken their voice away. As far as the people of Clayton County, I will be open and honest and transparent to every member of the 5th District. I welcome input from everyone, and I welcome people to reach out to me, chase@chaseforhouse.com. Shoot me an email. I'd like to hear from you. So with that in mind, yeah, I think we should have more choices, more voices, and less disenfranchisement when it comes to who we decide who our representatives are in Congress.
Thank you for your response. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Robert Franklin.
I have concern about Clayton County because there's enormous pain in Clayton County tonight. The pain of impact of decreased travel, air travel with our phenomenal world-class airport has had the almost unintended consequence of diminished fuel tax revenues for the schools and the citizens of Clayton County. There is pain. There is worry and anxiety about economic development, about the future of jobs in Clayton County. One of the things I said that the next congressperson must do is convene leaders. I would call upon small business leaders and leaders in philanthropy to come together and to make Clayton County a test case. How can we generate, until airport travel and fuel tax revenue is restored, to ensure that the children, we must always act and ask the question, what's in the best interest of the children? And in Clayton County, those children are looking us to say, do you feel our pain and do you have a plan? I feel your pain, I have a plan. I can convene the leaders that can make immediate impacts on the situation there.
Thank you for your response. And finally, we will hear from Stephen Muhammad.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I would start my campaign mantra, creating a new reality. The systemic issues of poverty, lack of affordable housing, criminalization of the Black man, insufficient education and job training and small business programs. That's what Clayton County needs. Did you know that Black children in Clayton County are more than three times likely to be in poverty than white children? That Black children in Clayton County are 3 times more likely to go to jail? So Clayton County has a real problem. But what I would do is we would hit the streets. We would create the programs that would create freedom, justice, and equality for these young children so that they can then have a future for themselves. Because right now there is no future. When they tore down public housing in Atlanta, they pushed them to Clayton County. So there's a very low income in pockets of Clayton County. Not all of it, but there's areas of Clayton County that need a lot of help. And so, as Dr. Franklin said, Clayton County is in desperate need of some help. And that has to be convened, called, marshaled, and put forth a plan, like a Marshall Plan, to create help for Clayton County. Thank you.
Thank you all for your responses and for listening to the voices of the Clayton County Young Democrats. And at this moment, we will turn it back over to Cindy Jackson, the president of DeKalb Young Dems.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the Clayton County Clayco Young Democrats. Thank y'all so much for your input. It has been a pleasure to host with you all. Now we have the final stage, which is your closing statements. So for the candidates, this is your, give it that good old college try, that hardcore pitch, really pitch to people. You will have 1 minute to tell us why we should vote for you for Congress and to take on this great seat. We will start with Keisha Sean Waits.
Terrific. Thank you for the question. I believe that everything in my life has prepared me for this very moment. I am a woman of faith. I'm guided by a specific set of principles. When I think about the legacy of the congressman, the spirit that he embodied, his vision and his integrity, I think it speaks to my desire, in which I believe is a calling for public service. I close in telling you that everything that I do is guided by a certain set of principles. And I will work around the clock to ensure that the needs of marginalized communities will be heard. The next member must hit the ground running. I believe it is imperative that they have legislative experience. I also believe it's imperative that they have relationships at the state and federal levels of government. I spent 15 years as a crisis manager traveling the country working on some of the challenges that we face here, right here at home. And I look forward to being your voice and your representative in Washington. And thank you again for this opportunity tonight.
Thank you so much. Now we will go over to Barrington Martin II.
I would first like to thank the Young Democrats for giving me this opportunity to speak with everyone about my platform. And I think it's important to remind you all that it's time for a new direction. New challenges await us. And if we continue to address the problems with the same old methods, the people are going to continue to struggle. And I also think it's important to remind you all that I was here in the beginning. I had the courage to do what none of my opponents did. Where were they on June 9th? Why do they care now? It's always been about my city, my people. This is why I created the People's Bailout, and this is why it's the best solution for current problems. And this is why I'm the best candidate for moving forward. Again, everyone who's watching at home, my name is Barrington Martin II, and I am the new trouble that Congress needs.
Thank you so much, Barrington Martin II. We appreciate those words. Now we will have Stephen Muhammad.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What would I do? Well, first of all, I would do everything that I could to make sure that the 5th district is representative. As we see right now, you know, my wife comes from a family of contractors, and coming from the family of contractors, sometime her father would be building kitchens and houses and fixing bathrooms of people all over Metro Atlanta. When I would go there, her mother would say, well, look at my cabinets, look at my sink, because he was in demand. Well, we've had an icon in the seat for the past 30 years, and he was in demand, traveling the country, raising money for the Democrats. And there are a lot of things, a lot of cabinets that have hanging doors and leaky faucets that need to be taken care of. And I'm that person that would deal with the real, serious, hard problems of the 5th district. I would be here. I have no desire to travel or globetrot. I have a desire to fix the 5th district so my grandchildren and children and my children's children would have a safe and decent place to live.
Thank you so much for those
and
words.
I want to say, Muhammad, a name you can trust. Vote for me.
Like that in the pitch there. All right. So
Are you still there?
Or well, if I can, I'll continue to talk.
I think Cindy froze.
Yeah, the screen is frozen.
Well, I'll continue to talk. Muhammad, that's a name you definitely can trust, and we're here for you at all times. So,
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chase Oliver. Would you please give us your closing remarks?
Yes. So thank you very much to the Young Democrats for having me on. I very much appreciate the invitation. It's not often that a libertarian comes and speak to a Democratic forum. So I wanted to say first and foremost, thank you guys for inviting me to speak with you today. I want to talk about challenging the establishment. That's what a vote for Chase Oliver will do on September the 29th. You can send a message to your party leaders, both in Georgia and in Washington, D.C., that your vote is to be earned and not to be expected. I will be a fighter for District 5 every single day I serve. I will be sending this message of criminal justice reform that we need to hear about. And during this remaining time, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the names of the people we need to be talking about. People like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Duncan Lemp, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, Eric Garner, and on and on and on and on. And these are voices that we need to be elevating in DC, and we need to be taking the passion and the righteousness that we have on the streets of Atlanta, and we need to be taking it to the Capitol in Washington, D.C., and I will be a fighter for those people in qualified immunity, in cash bail, in no-knock raids, in militarized police, and in the drug war, and make our communities safe again, make our police accountable again, and let's bring liberty back to the people of the 5th District. Thank you.
So much. And now we will have Dr. Robert Franklin.
Thank you, Young Democrats. You are the hope for tomorrow. You were the first to convene us. We are honored to be in your presence and under your auspice, and we will always, and history will record, you were the first to bring the candidates together. I have an agenda of healing, being a healing bridge between John Lewis and the leaders that follow. This is a 90-day mission. This is a short-term mission. And I have the gravitas, the presence, to convene leaders, to hold the government accountable, to message as John Lewis did, and to inspire hope and bring global perspective. Some of the problems that need solutions are going to require cooperation with nations of Africa, the Caribbean, Asia, and throughout the world. Tonight, Kamala Harris will stand before the nation and the world and receive the nomination, accept that nomination, and thank the nation and challenge us. I'm so blessed to know Senator Harris and future Vice President, and I believe we have a new generation of leaders emerging. It's time for us to seize the day, time for us to offer alternative vision and listen to what John Lewis said to us in his July 30 letter to the New York Times. Together, you can redeem the soul of America. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, so that really concludes it. We just want to thank all of the candidates for being here. So everyone definitely give yourselves a round of applause. You all did very great. As everyone know, please, 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 it's very, very, very important to vote. So make sure that everyone that you know, your friends of friends, your cousins, and just make sure that your play cousins, real cousins, everybody, it is so important to vote. So please sure do that. Also visit us online. The Young Dems of Atlanta, their website is ydatl.com. Their Instagram is the same. So is their Facebook. For Clayton County Young Dems, their Facebook is CCYDGA, and their Instagram and their Twitter is Clayton County Dems. And for DeKalb Young Democrats, our website is DeKalbYD.com, And for our website, it is Facebook.com, DeKalb Young Democrats, and Instagram.com, DeKalb Young Dems, as well as Twitter.com, DeKalb Young Dems. Again, thank you guys so much. Have fun watching tonight's big event. And again, excellent job. Great job, everyone. We are so proud of you for even running. And we know that whoever gets the seat will definitely make the most of it and do their best to improve our great city of Atlanta. All right. We want to thank you guys again and have a great evening. Bye, y'all.